Welcome to our entry discussing how to use personal pronouns. Here we will briefly be discussing what pronouns are, who uses them, and giving examples of how to use pronouns of all kinds. We will be placing an emphasis on personal pronouns in this entry because personal pronouns are something we all need to understand how to use and adapt to using, and they need not be as daunting as they sound. So without further ado, let's get into it. What are personal pronouns? Simply put, personal pronouns are terms we use to refer to ourselves. They are our own personal terms. It's important that we refer to these as personal instead of preferred, because preferred implies that those using the pronouns are okay with other pronouns being used to refer to them, which they might not be comfortable with. This opens the door to misgendering individuals. Misgendering is the act of intentionally or accidentally using terms that don't coincide with an individual's gender identity. No personal pronouns are representative of a specific gender identity. She, her pronouns don't have to be used only by women, he, him pronouns don't have to be used only by men, and they, them pronouns don't have to be used only by non-binary or genderqueer individuals. But the way personal pronouns are used does come with a lot of benefits for those who don't feel a connection to the binary pronouns they were prescribed at birth. It's another form of self-expression that puts a stronger emphasis on the individuals using them than onto societal gender norms. Who uses personal pronouns? So now we've gone over the basics of what personal pronouns are, who uses them? We all do. Every single individual on this planet uses personal pronouns whether they acknowledge it or not. If you're a cis perisex man born a beautiful baby boy who was given he, him pronouns from the day you were born, and you still use them to this day, you are using he, him as your personal pronouns. Those pronouns are the terms you decided you were comfortable sticking with, because you feel a connection to them. Pronouns are not an invention created solely for non-binary individuals. They have existed for hundreds of years and exist in one form or another in every culture and language on Earth. Different languages have different structures. English isn't the only language to use pronouns, but it is one of the few languages which has a structure that makes it a lot easier to experiment with different kinds of pronouns. Some languages, such as Romance languages like Spanish and French, are a lot more gendered, and this can sometimes make it more difficult for those who don't feel a connection to binary language to express themselves, but it's not impossible. With a bit of creativity, all languages can be inclusive. Examples of personal pronouns. Now we know what they are and who uses them, let's go through some examples of pronouns you may encounter in your day-to-day life. Keep in mind that this isn't an exhaustive list, and we will be sticking with English examples, though most of these pronouns can be transferred to other languages. Binary pronouns. There are two sets of pronouns which you will encounter the most. These are he, him, his, himself, and she, her, hers, herself. These pronouns have been used for centuries to refer to baby boys, men, girls, and women, but it wasn't always like this. For a long time, until around the 12th century, she, her pronouns didn't exist, and weren't as commonly used in their modern context, until around the 15th century. In fact, they are younger than the use of singular they pronouns. That's right, for a long time men and women were using essentially the same terms to refer to themselves, with only minor differences in spelling. The only major difference being the given names and titles of children, which brings us smoothly onto given and chosen names. That's right, your name is itself a type of personal pronoun. If you were to mention me to another individual by saying, JJ did this, you would be using one of my pronouns. Names are a great way to refer to an individual whose pronouns you don't know yet. They, them, and it, its. They, them, theirs, their, self is likely the third most common set of pronouns you will encounter, if not the most. They are the most inclusive and a standard set of pronouns that exist. Until you know an individual's name or pronouns, you refer to them as they, them. They are the standard, which is why so many individuals choose to adopt them as their personal pronouns. There is often arguments being made that they, them pronouns are primarily plural and make no sense because being used to refer to an individual, but this is simply not true. As I mentioned, they, them in its singular usage is older than she, her pronouns. I'm certain you have referred to a stranger by they, them pronouns countless times in your life, with phrases like, I don't know them. Pay no mind to those who refuse to use them to refer to individuals who use they, them as their personal pronouns. They will come up with any excuse to excuse their exclusionary bigotry. The fact is, their arguments are complete poppycock and just don't hold any weight. I placed it, its pronouns in this section too, because they're in this weird limbo in the English language of almost but not quite being neopronouns. We'll discuss them in a second. In languages outside of English, its pronouns can be the most common pronouns used in place of or alongside they, them. In English, calling an individual an it can be an insult, but so can calling an individual a she if they don't use she, her pronouns. The fact is, if an individual uses its pronouns as its personal pronouns, they are no longer an insult because that's how it wants to be referred. Refusing to use its pronouns for those who use them because you deem them to be an insult says more about the context you usually see them used in than the pronouns themselves. Just because they are used to insult others doesn't mean every individual sees them as insults. Objectification is one of the most common forms of attempting to justify not using its or neopronouns because it implies the individual is an object. And again, that says more about how you and society sees those terms. It's not objectification if an individual is telling you they are comfortable having those terms used for them. This is a societal problem and not necessarily your fault, but we can all do our part in breaking those stigmas by putting aside what we think we know and listening to the individuals who use them. You need to be using the pronouns an individual tells you they want to have used for them because they are their pronouns. Refusing to use them is an act of disrespect towards the individual. It says you don't respect their right to choose their own terms and places your voice and experience over theirs, which is never okay. Neopronouns. Our final example of pronouns we will be discussing is neopronouns. Many individuals hear neopronouns and immediately overcomplicate them. Neopronouns are just pronouns like any other pronouns we've already discussed. The only difference is that they just aren't as commonly used. Once you know how to structure the pronouns we've already discussed, and once you know an individual's neopronoun terms, you can easily transfer them over to that structure. There is nothing to be afraid of. If you're not sure how to use them there and then, just ask. There is no harm in not knowing of them right off the bat. Refusing to use an individual's neopronouns is again an insult to the individual. Neopronouns are most commonly used by non-binary and genderqueer individuals with xenogenders, but like any other pronoun, they don't have to be. Any individual can use them. Pronouns are not indicative of an individual's gender identity. How to use personal pronouns. On the surface, pronouns sound like they'd be difficult to get, but you use them every day. Every time you say, I did this or we did that, you're using pronouns. Pronouns are everywhere. Personal pronouns are no exception. We might encounter some pronouns we're unfamiliar with, or the way we see pronouns written out in different places might be confusing. How do we read and use those pronouns in everyday language? How to read pronouns. If you've ever been on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen bios where individuals write pronouns out like they, he. This can be confusing because he takes the same position as they in sentences, so why would they be written next to each other? In short, it's to save space. They, them means an individual uses both they, them and he, him pronouns. Many individuals have multiple sets of pronouns. I myself have 4, which I write out as they, it, that, they. Some individuals list their pronouns in order of preference, but others like myself write them out in certain ways for aesthetic reasons. When you read out my pronouns, it sounds like they hit that they. There's no rules to how to list your pronouns or even which pronouns you should be using. The trick is to use every pronoun set that has been listed. You don't have to use them all in the same sentence or even the same paragraph, but don't stick to just one set. Try to switch between them. Sentence structure. When I encounter pronoun sets I'm unfamiliar with, I place them into a handy sentence template that works for any pronoun set. If you're like me and the specific names for each term's property confuses you, then the system I use may help you. Let's look at my template and then see how it works for different pronoun sets. My template is this. Blank went to the shops today and picked blank out a new outfit. I told blank that I had one just like blank. The template works because it includes all 4 types of pronoun within a pronoun set. Let me show you what I mean with the pronouns they, them. They went to the shops today and picked themselves out a new outfit. I told them I had one just like theirs. This template can work for any pronouns. Let's try with he, him, and she, her. He went to the shops today and picked himself out a new outfit. I told him I had one just like his. She went to the shops today and picked herself out a new outfit. I told her I had one just like hers. You don't have to use my template. Try coming up with your own combinations. There is no harm in experimenting. Let's try the template out with my other 3 sets of pronouns. to further emphasise how well it works. It went to the shops today and picked itself out a new outfit. I told it I had one just like it. You may have noticed with the it set of pronouns, two of the pronoun properties are the same. This is something that happens with many pronoun sets, such as my next set of pronouns, that's. That went to the shops today and picked thatself out a new outfit. I told that I had one just like that. Some sets of pronouns might sound a little janky when you first use them, but this doesn't mean they are wrong. It just means you need a bit more practice. My final set of pronouns is Fair. Faye went to the shops today and picked Fair's self out a new outfit. I told Fair I had one just like Fair's. Using Fair is not cultural appropriation to pagans, like many bigots like to claim. And even if it was, using them would be an appropriation of my own pagan culture and heritage, so that argument doesn't hold up. I've yet to encounter a set of pronouns which are exclusive to a specific culture. If you're unsure, ask the user. I think we've got the gist of how to work different sets of pronouns into sentence templates. You understand. So go out and experiment with either using my template or creating your own. There are also a plethora of sites you can use which break down different sets of pronouns. A quick Google can sometimes do wonders. But the most important thing to remember is that if you're in doubt, just ask. Also, become more comfortable with your own pronouns. Put them in your bios and emails you send if you're comfortable. This is never mandatory, though it does help normalise the use of personal pronouns. Introduce yourself to strangers with your name and pronouns before asking for theirs. Never assume an individual's pronouns based on appearance. Never force others to reveal their pronouns if they are not comfortable. Listen to the individual and use the pronouns they ask you to. The most important thing to remember is that aside from the way you structure your sentences, there are no rules to what pronouns you can and can't use, no matter how bizarre they may sound. Those are comfort terms specifically picked by the individual that uses them, and needs to be respected. If you encounter an individual purposely mocking neopronouns by placing things like, my pronouns are beep boop, in their bios, the best thing to do is use them. Show beep that you respect all pronouns even if boop doesn't. Show boop that respecting pronouns of all kinds is easy, and that goes a long way to show Neo users support. I hope I've helped you learn the basics of how to use pronouns. This is just the tip of the iceberg of a much broader topic, so if you have any questions, don't be afraid to let me know. Until next time, my name is JJ and my pronouns are they, it, that, they, and I wish you Boreda, Brunhanda, Noswaifdar, or Nosdar, wherever you are in the world. Bye!